Dell Tech World. So as I mentioned, Pat, we are back in person. First and foremost, this is the inflection point. These last about 30 days. We are seeing the tech world make a monumental shift back to in-person events. Over the next 3 months, you and I will be at no less than probably 15 to 20 in-person events. The era of the virtual event is going to be down to one virtual event that everybody must attend. That's the 6.5 Summit. We do that very intentionally because we have 20 plus CEOs from global companies. But overall, the tech world is shifting back. It's a good sign. It means that I think the macro indicators are that the COVID wave is coming to a point where it will no longer be impacting company strategies in terms of having in-person events. Something monumental would need to happen. That's the first and foremost. Dell Tech World itself, though, Pat, was a really big event, covered a ton of ground. Too many announcements to necessarily cover, so I think I could talk about a couple observations. Maybe you could talk about a couple observations, and we go from there. First and foremost, as I saw it, at least my feeling was Dell is really putting its claws around this multi-cloud era. The company made a number of announcements that really are about its capabilities to support the enterprise of the future in terms of having workloads placed in many diverse locations, on-prem, at the edge, in the public cloud. And its architecture, its design, its development, and what it's building is really about the fact that we're going to see this continue to proliferate. This was notable with Apex, which has continued to expand its offering. It's still more in its infancy than some of the other on-prem cloud offerings, but it's moving along pretty quickly. You had Project Alpine, which is another tech, that's really moving in that direction. Pat, I was trying to think for the sake of the show and trying to keep our sections into about 5 minutes of what really caught my attention. There it is. That's the one I was going to talk about. What really caught
I'm your second wife. I'm your work wife, and I read your mind.
What really caught my attention was a strategic partnership that, honestly, I don't know that I could have expected coming into Dell Tech World, and that was Dell and Snowflake. You basically have one of the most well-known and respected on-prem IT infrastructure companies on the planet with one of the most notorious born on cloud, cloud-native SaaS subscription data warehouse services. And basically, this partnership took the technology of saying, hey, whether your data is on-prem, whether your data is in the public cloud, or whether you want to have data move between the public cloud and prem, Snowflake is going to enable customers that have on-prem Dell PowerStore to be able to basically access their data and utilize the Snowflake interface. And to me, Pat, this was like the penultimate example of cloud and prem working collectively, and it opened up the kimono to a whole new era of born on cloud software using on-prem infrastructure to strategically scale its business. For Snowflake, it's a great partnership because there's tons of data that, doesn't necessarily find its way into Snowflake because companies have historically been cautious about the spend related to the egress and moving data to public. And so the data scientists aren't able to maximize the data that's being utilized. Now they're basically saying wherever the data is, on-prem, at the edge, in the cloud, we can make that data accessible to Snowflake. So that, to me, Pat, was probably one of the most compelling announcements that were made, but there were several. And by the way, just a lot of great conversations. I won't dig too deep into this here, and I'll give a little ground for you. But sit downs with Michael Dell, sit downs with CFO Tom Sweet, sit downs with Sam Grocott, who leads product globally. And just what I loved about getting back in person was the fact that we were getting time, quality, close up and personal time with the Dell executives to really not only hear about the announcements, but to get into where the company's going, its vision, post VMware, post multi-cloud era, post remote work spike for PCs. How is the company going to keep doing $100 billion a year? Very encouraging couple of days in Las Vegas. Thank you, Dell. Pat, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, you hit a lot of good points there. And first and foremost, Dell put on a great event. While it would have been nice to have a little bit of free time, I did appreciate the amount of one-on-one or small group conversations that I had with Dell's most senior executives. I pretty much met with the entire ELT in one way or another, either one-on-one or small group. And those to me are the best times spent. You get a certain level of confidence from the company. And, Michael is the bellwether, right? I looked to Michael and Jeff and newly minted co-COO Chuck Whitten to their level of confidence. And their confidence was high. Even though Dell has started a little bit later in as a service with Apex, just the fact that they have infrastructure and clients, I can safely bet that in 10 years they'll be the highest revenue as a service company. I did appreciate Dell keeping the messaging very crisp. If I connect day one keynote with day two keynote, 3 key themes came out. And a lot of this was a reinforcement of what a post-VMware world looks like. I think first and foremost, this element of trust. And my first thought was, what are we talking about? Everybody says that they're the most trusted resource out there. But what Dell did was really setting the stage for why you need to trust us with your data, whether that's on-prem, colo, public cloud, or any type of instantiation out there on the edge. And what that really leaned into is like Project Alpine, which is the ability to store, do DR, backups, everything you would want to do with your data in the public cloud. And with Project Alpine, we saw an AWS demo, but there were buttons for GCP and there was a button for Azure. So trust, multi-cloud. And then on day 3, I think it was about innovation, about what Dell can do for its customers, not only on the client side, but also on the on-prem and cloud side. Really good meetings with the client folks. I had dinner with the executive staff there. I can't divulge. I mean, this wasn't a big client launch. In fact, the big launches here were Apex, Project Alpine, but also some really big storage announcements. My vice president and principal analyst of storage and data, Steve McDowell, wrote about this on Forbes, but huge updates to the Power family out there. There were over 500 features that were pulled in that probably won't all get everybody watching us too super excited, but in the storage world, this makes a huge difference. Dell is the leader in storage. They hit all the way from small business all the way to the largest, highest performance attached to mainframe type of storage units. And it was good to see Dell come out with these zero trust based systems. Again, get it? Started with trust. We have zero trust Dell storage kernel with PowerMax. So again, so many takeaways from the show. I left pretty excited and pretty tired at the same thing. And I do feel that if the company can execute, and I do think Dell is an execution machine, they're going to be in a very good place. I do believe to get bigger attraction from investors, they do need to start showing some subscription numbers, some as a service numbers, or some cloud numbers. The company this year and next year can't necessarily rely on the big gains in client. While I do think the PC business will grow, it's not going to grow anywhere near what it grew the prior 18 months.
I think you wrapped that up pretty well, and I think you made some really good points about the financials. We had some good conversations with those teams as well, but that stuff's going to be, I think, dripped out over the longer tail, Pat. I just think they're gonna get a little more critical mass before we may hear more about that. But I know you and I both have opinions on that, and those opinions were shared for sure.